right, everyone, buckle up, because today we're diving into some seriously mind-blowing stuff.
Oh yeah, we're talking about the future,
The intelligence age.
where AI could change just about everything.
And our guide for this wild ride is
Uh-huh.
an article called The Intelligence Age
Which just came out on September 23rd.
of 2024.
Super recent.
Okay, so one of the first things that jumped out at me
Yeah.
was this idea that we're basically on a fast track
Oh, absolutely.
for simple sand.
To superintelligence.
Like, whoa,
The author really seems to believe that could happen,
in a few thousand days.
which, let's be real.
That's less than a decade.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild thought.
Okay, I'm officially nervous. But hold on, how do we even get to superintelligence?
Wow.
The article mentions deep learning a lot.
Yeah, it kind of assumes we all know what that means, but
Maybe a quick refresher is in order.
definitely. Think of it this way.
Okay.
Deep learning is like the engine.
The engine.
Yeah, the engine that powers AI to learn, kind of like we do.
But way faster, right?
Oh yeah, exponentially faster.
So it's not just pre-programmed to do one thing.
Well,
It actually gets smarter the more data it processes.
exactly. It keeps improving as it goes.
So it's more like it experiences things and learns from them,
That's a great way to put it.
which is why I guess the author makes that crazy prediction about superintelligence.
Yeah, if AI keeps learning this fast,
It could surpass our abilities.
potentially a lot sooner than we might think.
Okay, I am officially both fascinated and terrified.
It's a potent combination, right?
Definitely. So the article then starts throwing out all these potential applications of AI,
Oh, it gets really interesting.
like having personalized AI assistants for things like managing our health,
Imagine that.
to virtual tutors who can teach us anything.
In any language.
It's like the possibilities are endless,
The author also talks about AI accelerating scientific discovery.
which could lead to breakthroughs we can't even imagine right now,
Right, like imagine AI helping us solve climate change.
or even establish a space colony.
The author seems particularly excited about that.
It's definitely a hold on to your hats kind of vision.
For sure.
Hmm.
But it's not all sunshine and roses, right?
Exactly.
The article also acknowledges there will be some challenges along the way.
One of the biggest ones being the impact on jobs.
The big question everyone's asking.
Yeah, will robots take my job?
The author doesn't shy away from that.
But they do offer a slightly different perspective.
Yeah, they don't seem to think jobs will disappear as fast as people assume.
So that's not like robots coming in and stealing all our jobs overnight.
More like a gradual transformation of the labor market.
Okay, that's a little less scary.
The author actually makes an interesting comparison to the past.
Oh, tell me more.
They say, a few hundred years ago, nobody could have predicted the jobs we have today.
Like, try explaining being a social media manager to someone from the 1700s.
Exactly. So who knows what new roles will emerge in the intelligence age?
I'm getting a little more optimistic, but still, I can't help but worry. Won't some people be left behind as these new technologies emerge? We've seen that happen before.
That's a valid concern.
I mean, not everyone can just become a programmer or AI specialist overnight.
Right, but the author seems to believe that we'll never actually run out of things to do,
Okay.
even if those things don't look like traditional jobs.
So it's about shifting our perspective on what work even means.
Exactly. But here's the crucial part.
Okay.
The author is really adamant about making sure AI is accessible to everyone.
Oh, so it's not just about developing the technology, but making sure it doesn't become a tool only for the wealthy or powerful.
Absolutely. They argue that we need a ton of computing power and energy to make AI truly widespread.
Because otherwise it could actually worsen inequality.
Right.
Okay, that's a point I hadn't considered.
It's a crucial one, though.
Definitely something to think about.
We're only scratching the surface here.
And this deep dive is already getting pretty deep.
The author goes on to compare the potential impact of the intelligence age to previous revolutions.
Like the agricultural and industrial revolution.
Yeah, they seem to think this could be on that level,
Okay, those were pretty major turning points in history.
to put it mildly.
So they're suggesting AI could be just as transformative.
That's the argument.
Wow, that's a lot to process.
It is, right?
It's like, imagine someone from a few hundred years ago trying to understand our world today.
Yeah, the author says future generations might look back at US the same way.
Like, those people in the early 21st century, they had no idea what was coming.
Exactly.
So we're not just talking about cool new gadgets.
Not at all.
We're talking about a fundamental shift in how humanity functions.
That's what makes this so fascinating.
And kind of scary.
It's a powerful combination, for sure.
Okay, I'm starting to see why this intelligence age thing is such a big deal.
Yeah, it's not something to be taken lightly.
It's Definitely a lot more than just robots and algorithms.
The author definitely doesn't shy away from that.
In fact, they even say it,
What's that?
that the intelligence age, it will not be an entirely positive story.
Right, there will be bumps in the road
Challenges to
and
overcome.
potentially even some downsides.
It's a good reminder that technology is a tool.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad.
We need to be aware of both.
Absolutely. It's not about blindly trusting AI
It's about understanding it, shaping it.
and making sure it serves humanity.
Well said. Okay, one of the things that keeps coming up
Yeah.
is this concern about the impact on jobs.
It's definitely the question everyone's asking.
Will robots take our jobs?
And it's understandable why people are anxious.
But the author seems to have a more nuanced take on that.
They do, yeah.
Instead of this, doomsday scenario where robots take over.
Yeah, mass unemployment.
They argue that most jobs will change more slowly than most people think.
So less of a sudden shift, more of a gradual evolution.
So it's not about robots coming for our jobs tomorrow.
More like the nature of work itself will change over time.
So robots working alongside us.
Potentially.
Or helping us do our jobs better.
Maybe even creating entirely new kinds of jobs.
Okay, so maybe it's not all doom and gloom.
The author is actually quite optimistic about the future of work in the intelligence age.
Really?
They even go so far as to say they have no fear that we'll run out of things to do.
Wow, that's a pretty bold statement.
It is, isn't it?
But I guess if you think about it,
Yeah.
throughout history, new technologies have always led to new jobs.
That's a good point.
Even if we couldn't predict what those jobs would be at the time.
Like, who could have imagined influencer as a job a few decades ago?
Exactly. So maybe we just need to trust that the same thing will happen with AI.
The author seems to think so.
But even if new jobs emerge, won't there be a period of adjustment
Oh,
as people adapt to these new ways of working?
That's why the author emphasizes investing in education and retraining programs.
So it's not enough to just develop the technology
We need to prepare people for the changes it will bring.
and make sure everyone has the opportunity to benefit.
It's about creating a future that works for everyone.
Not just a select few.
Exactly.
Okay, this is really starting to paint a more complex picture of the intelligence age.
It's definitely not a simple topic.
It's not just robots taking over the world.
Yeah.
It's about this interplay of technology, society, human choices.
It's a tapestry,
A complex tapestry.
woven together with threads of opportunity and challenge.
And we're only just beginning to understand the pattern,
There's so much more to explore.
which is why we're doing this deep dive.
To help us all make sense of this incredible and maybe a little bit scary future.
I think it's safe to say this is just the beginning of the conversation.
Oh, we've only just scratched the surface.
There's so much more to unpack.
And so many more questions to ask.
But for now, let's take a break
Catch our breath,
and come back for part 2 of our deep dive into the intelligence age.
where we'll delve even deeper into the potential, the challenges, and the really mind-bending possibilities that lie ahead.
We'll see you then.
Until next time. And we've really only just scratched the surface, right?
Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this whole jobs of the future thing.
It's definitely mind-boggling.
Because the author seems pretty chill about it.
Oh, yeah, very optimistic.
But I'm kind of freaking out. How do we even prepare for jobs that don't exist yet?
Right. It's like, how do you train for something you can't even imagine?
Exactly. But the author seems to think we shouldn't get too hung up on preserving today's jobs.
They kind of have a point, though.
Yeah, clinging to the past isn't really a recipe for progress.
And they make this interesting comparison.
Okay, I love a good analogy. Lay it on me.
Imagine trying to explain to someone a few hundred years ago what it means to be like a software developer or...
Oh my gosh, their heads would explode.
Right. Like back then, real jobs were things like farming or blacksmithing.
So they'd be like, wait, you get paid to sit at a computer and make what?
Exactly. And the author's point is that we might be those people in 100 years.
Our grandkids will have jobs that sound like science fiction to us right now.
Precisely. And they think this is where AI gets really exciting.
Okay, how so?
It's not about robots replacing us.
Okay, good.
It's about AI amplifying what we're already good at.
So more like having a superpowered teammate than being replaced by a machine.
Yeah, that's a much better way to think about it.
I like that, less scary.
Right. So think about it this way. Humans are great at things like creativity, problem solving, empathy.
It's the soft skills.
Exactly. And AI is awesome at things like analyzing massive amounts of data, spotting patterns we might miss.
So they each bring something different to the table.
And when you combine those strengths, who knows what we could achieve.
So instead of competing, we could be collaborating with AI to solve problems that seem impossible today.
That's the idea. The author actually uses this term, positive sum games.
Okay, break that down for me.
It basically means everyone wins.
So it's not a zero-sum game where one side wins and the other loses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
AI could actually create a world where progress benefits all of us.
Okay, I'm starting to buy into this a little bit more.
It is a pretty hopeful vision.
But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't still a little nervous.
And those nerves are totally valid.
Like, there's got to be some bumps in the road, right?
Oh, absolutely. The author acknowledges that.
It's not all going to be smooth sailing into this utopian future.
Definitely not.
Like, we can't just blindly trust that AI will be used for good.
That's a recipe for disaster.
We have to think about the ethics, who controls it, the potential for unintended consequences.
All those things are crucial. And the author does talk about the need for guidelines.
So it's about being intentional.
Making sure that human well-being is at the forefront of AI development.
It's like the technology itself isn't inherently good or bad.
It's all about how we choose to use it.
We're the ones shaping this future.
And that means taking responsibility for it.
Okay, so we've talked about the big ideas, the potential, the challenges.
The philosophical stuff.
But what about the practical side of things?
Like, how do we actually make this whole intelligence age thing work?
Yeah, because it's not just about the algorithms and the fancy computers, right?
Right. The author is really big on the importance of infrastructure.
Oh, like the nuts and bolts of making it all run.
Exactly. Specifically, they talk about computing power and energy.
Because AI is a hungry beast.
It needs a lot of juice to operate.
It's not like we can just plug it into a wall socket and expect it to solve all our problems.
Not quite. They argue that if we want AI to benefit everyone,
Not just the privileged few.
we need to make it cheap and abundant.
And that takes massive amounts of computing power, which in turn takes a lot of energy.
And the resources to build and maintain all those systems.
So it's kind of like you can have the best car in the world, but if there are no roads, it's not going very far.
I love that analogy. It perfectly captures the point.
And the author actually warns that if we don't get this right,
What do you mean?
if we don't build the infrastructure to support widespread AI access,
Uh-huh.
it could actually make inequality worse.
That's the danger.
Like, imagine a world where only the wealthy can afford the best AI tools and services.
It would be like the digital divide we have with the internet, only magnified 1,000 times over.
The haves would have AI, and the have-nots would be further behind than ever.
It's a chilling thought, isn't it?
Definitely gives me some food for thought.
So, yeah, the author is really emphasizing that building out the infrastructure,
Making it affordable and accessible.
that's crucial to making their vision of the intelligence age a reality.
Okay, I'm starting to realize just how many moving parts there are to this.
It's a complex ecosystem.
It's not just about the tech, it's about the economics, the ethics, the infrastructure.
The human element.
It's a whole system.
And we're only just beginning to understand how it all fits together.
This deep dive has really helped to break it all down, though.
I'm glad to hear that.
It's a lot to wrap our heads around, but it's fascinating.
And crucial, because the choices we make today,
About how we develop and deploy AI.
those choices will have a ripple effect for generations to come.
No pressure, right.
Right. But I think the author would say it's not about being perfect,
It's about being thoughtful.
about approaching this new era with a sense of both optimism and caution,
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
from the philosophical to the practical.
And I've got to say, the author's optimism is starting to rub off on me a little bit.
I think that's a good thing.
It's definitely a lot to process, but this conversation has been super helpful in starting to make sense of it all.
And as we move towards the author's concluding thoughts,
Yeah, where do they leave us?
there's one final point they make that I think is worth highlighting.
Okay, lay it on me.
They say that if we could fast forward 100 years,
Into this intelligence age they're describing.
yeah,
Okay.
the world around us
Mm-hmm.
would feel just as unimaginable to us
Whoa.
as our current world would to someone from a few hundred years ago.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the intelligence age, and I'm ready for that final point you mentioned.
All right, so the author ends with this thought that's both like really exciting and kind of scary at the same time.
Okay, hit me with it.
They basically say that if we could like fast forward 100 years into this intelligence age,
Yeah.
the world around us would be just as unimaginable to us
Whoa.
as our current world would be to someone from like a few hundred years ago.
Okay, I'm starting to get a little dizzy here, but you're saying that, like, we think we're so advanced right now.
Right, with our smartphones and the internet and all that,
But compared to what's coming.
we might as well be living in the Stone Age.
Wow, that really puts things in perspective.
Like, imagine trying to explain the internet to someone from the 1700s.
Their heads would explode. So you're saying that could be US in 100 years.
The author seems to think so.
I don't even know if I should be excited or terrified at this point.
Maybe a little of both.
Probably both.
But I think their point is to, like, inspire us, to make us realize that we're on the cusp of something truly massive.
No. Okay, I'm feeling inspired and maybe a little nauseous.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. But if we're really about to enter this, like, unimaginable future,
Yeah.
how do we even begin to prepare for it?
Well, the author gives a few pieces of advice.
I'm all ears.
First, and this kind of echoes what we've been talking about,
Grease.
embrace adaptability.
Because things are going to be changing constantly.
Exactly. The intelligence age won't be static. It'll be all about evolving, learning new things.
So it's less about having a set career path and more about being open to new opportunities.
Yeah, like think of it like software updates.
Okay.
We got to be ready to download the latest version of ourselves.
I love that analogy. All right, what else?
Second, the author says we need to be active participants in shaping this future.
So don't just sit back and let it happen to you.
Right. Engage in these conversations, think critically about the implications, make your voice heard.
Because we have a say in what kind of intelligence age we want to build.
Absolutely. We're not just passengers on this train.
We're the engineers.
Yeah.
Laying down the tracks, deciding where it goes.
I like that.
Okay, so adapt and participate.
And finally, the author encourages a balance of optimism and caution.
So don't be naive, but don't let fear hold you back either.
Right. Embrace the possibilities, but be mindful of the potential downsides.
It's about progress, but not at any cost.
Thoughtful progress.
Man, this whole conversation has been a wild ride.
It has. We started with sand.
And now we're talking about, like, reshaping the very fabric of society.
It's a lot to take in, but it's also incredibly exciting.
I agree. And a little terrifying.
Maybe just a little. But that's the beauty of it.
We're on the edge of something truly new.
And the future is ours to shape.
So before we wrap up,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with the same question the author poses at the end of their article.
Okay, let's hear it.
If we could fast forward 100 years, what aspects of life in the intelligence age would seem most unimaginable to us today?
It's a great question, and I encourage everyone to really let their imaginations run wild.
Because what might seem like science fiction today could be reality tomorrow.
And that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today.
Already.
I know, right? Time flies when you're contemplating the future of humanity.
It certainly does.
But thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the intelligence age.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've come away with some new insights.
And a whole lot to think about.
Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.
See you then.